The summer of the gun now moved past my city limits with semis hitting on killers. I feel as if any minute that the next one to take aim. Stray stone on the same stage as Wade Page or James Holmes, names known. But following the American narrative, if they were Arabic, they'd be labeled a paratterrorist or gang members if black. Aliens if they Hispanic, but I know the transgressors in fact. Hard media.
I've come to Toronto a bunch of times now, but originally to document how TFC started at the bottom and finished at the top MLS Cup champion. I began to become interested in Jonathan Osorio and his story putting on for his city, Brampton, Ontario.
Jonathan, you told me proudly you are born and bred in Toronto.
Born and bred from Toronto. I grew up in Brampton. Shout out to Brampton because Brampton made me who I am today.
He gave a shout out on national TV to Brampton. And I was like, oh, Brampton. Everyone was like, Brampton, what's that?
Brampton?
Yeah.
I feel Brampton a bit kind of has an underdog mentality. You know, people would diss us for being here. Now it's like, okay, we're from here and we're gonna claim it and we're gonna be proud of it and we're gonna build something here so that you can't even make those jokes about us anymore.
As you dig into it, Brampton's a place that can be misunderstood. Home to a majority of visible minorities, which comes with some complicated stereotypes.
A lot of brown people, they call it Brown Town.
Do they call it Brown Town?
Yeah.
Sometimes Brampton gets referred to as a ghetto. A lot of that goes back to like racial connotations in some sense. You know, a lot of those small businesses that you see, they're from, you know, immigrant families that are entrepreneurs. 70% of the population could be considered a like visible minority, quote unquote.
Right.
Indians and Pakistani dominate the area,
Yeah.
but within that you still see people of all walks of life.
Everybody says Brampton is such a bad place and this and that. If you go to find the trouble, you'll find it. But honestly, like, if you mind, you know, you do your thing, you mind your business, you stay out of that, I think Brampton's a good place to grow up.
And as I started digging a little bit deeper, I started to figure he wasn't the only one.
Daniel Henry, Nick Lindsay, Kyle Laren. Then on the women's side, you got Kadisha Buchanan.
Ashley Lawrence used to play for Brampton.
Basketball, you got Tristan Thompson, is an NBA champion.
People like Tyler Ennis, Tristan Thompson,
Jason Ben.
Ratiba Hutchinson, Paul Stalteri, Ian Hume. Yeah, it's kind of crazy the amount of players that come from Brampton.
You know, why am I gonna totally forget about Brampton when it's the place that bred me, you know? Brampton made me hungry.
So with Jonathan Osorio now getting his moment to shine as a star in MLS, Kadisha Buchanan already won with the women's national team, and Canada, Toronto, getting an opportunity to host the Men's World Cup, I figured now was the right time to come to B-Town, Brampton, to understand how soccer, culture, and music are bubbling up here, just a little bit outside the circus. Well, I see you rocking the Columbia shirt. We're in an Italian restaurant. I was hanging out at a Jamaican spot. There was a Portuguese bar down the street that I was watching MLS at the other day.
Yeah.
Brampton's got a little bit of everything.
My mom's from Medellin, and my dad's from Caicedonia, which is a little town outside of Cali. In the house, you're still in Colombia. It's only outside the house that you go and you're in Canada. So my dad came to Canada when he was, I think he was 12, 13, 14 years old. His parents brought their kids here to have a better life, but they brought them here and then they went back home. They left the kids here. And I think the oldest kid was 18 years old and he had to work. It's probably like a lot of immigrants here is similar. When they had me in Toronto. We came to Brampton when I think I was 6 years old.
Why did they end up moving from Toronto to Brampton?
Financially, it was just better to find a place out here in Brampton. It was like a new area. This was a very new area for a decent price. And then when I got to high school, actually, a lot of my friends were Jamaicans. You know, it's nice, it blends in when it comes to sports and especially football. Like, everybody has a little something different to them. And I think that only made it more competitive, more than anything.
How would you describe Jonathan as a player?
Hungry. He's got a real appetite for the game.
Jason Bent is an OG in Canada soccer, one of the first Canadians ever to sign for MLS. He's worked at every level at Toronto FC, from the academy to the first team, and is a Brampton native himself.
He's always had those light feet and quick feet, and because he's so comfortable with the ball and he's got a little bit of wiggle to create some space for himself.
I used to only go to play futsal, so a lot of Latinos. We had our own futsal league. That's where the wiggle came from. And I went to a school that had like a lockdown every month. Like there was bad stuff happening it made me experience things that maybe some other guys didn't.
There's a Catholic school, a public school. They're basically right, these two fields away from each other. But at lunchtime, they're warring, there's fighting, there's all kinds of stuff. But their soccer programs are unbelievable.
It was a big hip hop culture, I think, in my school. And now, that's kind of what I listen to now. And it's shaped me. It's really shaped me.
And now with artists like Drake and The Weeknd and Bieber, it's just exploded. And because, the ship of Toronto has started to rise, now the waves of the surrounding areas are starting to rise now as well. So we're kind of like the ripple effect.
Brampton's the 9th largest city in Canada, but it seems like a suburban town you'd see potentially anywhere, until you look a step closer and you see in the strip malls, one next to another, a different type of food, a different ethnicity, a different culture. So Noise is a rapper that brings all of those things, his culture, his heritage, and his pride together through his music.
A common thread between a lot of Brampton residents is because they grew up the same way. So we're dealing with a lot of, recent waves of immigration here. A lot of parents were probably born in other places of the world, and so the kids here are kind of navigating that balance as far as, I'm born here in North America, I'm born here in Canada, but my parents are born somewhere else, so how do I kind of balance these two mentalities, how do I balance these two cultures and try to bring them together and make sense of them?
I was talking to Jonathan wearing a Colombia shirt. His family's from Colombia repping, but also plays for the Canadian national team. Proud of both.
I think what we tend to miss when we talk about multiculturalism is that there are reasons behind migration, whether it's displacement, whether it's because of war, whether it's because of poverty, whatever the case may be. And when you're here growing up amongst that, you can't help but be exposed to these other people's stories.
You never talk against the government. Because if you do, there's a saying that you get hidden behind the moon. If you try to speak up, freedom of speech is not accepted there. And that's what was happening in Syria. It's our duty, I think, as Canadians to lend a helping hand to those that need it.
Of the 900 Syrian refugees that have come to the Greater Toronto Area, over 200 have come to Mississauga and 48 to Brampton in the last year. So I met up with Naveen Perez, someone who I'd been talking to for a while about her project with the Syrian Eagles to discover how these Syrian refugees are making a home here. What was the experience like for the team to be able to go to TFC, meet players like Dwayne De Rosario, and also be there for the championship run and at the MLS Cup final?
So they came with their traditional tablas and their flags and everything, and they made their signs, and one of them was thanking Trudeau. Like, thank you, Trudeau. So they're very appreciative of that. It's the language of soccer. That's really what it is, right? We noticed that there's a lack of programs for the males, like the adult males. You see things for women, you see things for kids, but really nothing community-based for the males to integrate. So I have nurses, I have doctors, I have engineers, I have teachers. And unfortunately coming here, this is the difficulty, is that you need the Canadian experience. So having that resume to qualify you and the education to qualify you to perform these careers here. They're trying to support their families, so they're picking any kind of job. A lot of them are delivery boys, pizza delivery boys, evening taxi drivers. And I'd love to tell you, Brampton's even populated, and income there, like for even just rentals, is high. You have to think even going further out of the city.
There was a lot of single mothers that moved from like inner city areas in the Toronto to get away from that and go out to Brampton. It used to be a really nice place to kind of affordable housing, raise your family.
I was born in Toronto. I would say like the ghetto. So when I was about like 5, 6, Brampton was more of a better way for me and my sisters because it wasn't a good area for us to be growing up in. I'm the youngest of my 6 sisters, so it's like a dog eat dog. Like, you always want to be better, do everything.
How many sisters?
I have 6 sisters. Wow. So we're always fighting. Who could do the most keep-ups, who can shoot harder, who can dribble, like who can score the most. So I was just in that competitive environment, and I think that actually elevated my game. My mom wanted us to get out and go to Brampton. and play, like find a sport to keep us out the streets and stuff like that. My dad was around, like he's been around in games, but other than like the pitch, he had his own family as well. So my mom was more worrying about like, how am I gonna get to soccer? What are we gonna eat tonight? Like those type of thoughts that was running through her head as a single mother with 7 kids. So it was difficult. We really had to survive as a family, and how was I gonna pay for the next season? People like, oh, like you hear this like, oh, she didn't pay, like, and you don't feel like welcome. And I don't have any part to do with it. Like I can't help the situation that I'm in.
In tough moments or in great moments, ever like think back to some of those early days in Brampton that have gotten you to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, the anthem's playing, and you just look at the crowd, and you just brought your family there, and you just want to cry because they've been through the struggle with you, and now people are inspired to be you.
And I know your fam comes like everywhere, matches, on the road, CONCACAF Champions League, Mexico, the whole thing.
That was one of the best moments of my career, seeing them in Mexico for the final. They had never traveled to such lengths. I had a moment. I know I had a big moment. It was during the warm-up. I'm living my dream, and like I'm living a dream that a lot of Canadian kids can't say they've done. And I guess in that moment, just I reminisced on everything that it took for me to be here and everything that they sacrificed for me to be here, because they sacrificed a lot. It was tough, and to have them there was like was a dream. It was a dream come true for real. So, the World Cup is coming in 2026. Honestly, right now, I'm just looking to Qatar 2022, because also like I want to be the one to say, nah, like I helped Canada. We qualified, and we made the hex. We were top 4 in CONCACAF, and that's why we're at the World Cup. That's what I want to say.
Like I still want the gold World Cup, gold Olympics. So I think that's the hunger still there to keep pushing and keep being a better me and a better athlete, player, person.
I feel like I owe it. I owe it to them. Brampton, it's where I grew up most of my life. Yeah, I play for Toronto, and Brampton is Toronto. Brampton is part of Toronto. In that sense, I have to shout it out. I have to. Yeah, here it is, actually.
What's this?
The key.
Here's the key, man.
This is it.
The infamous key.
It is my honor on behalf of the Bramptonians to award you the key of the city of Brampton. That's what's up.
People from New York don't just say I'm from New York. They're very territorial. Like, oh, I'm from Bronx, I'm from Brooklyn, I'm from Queens, right? And like, why can't we have that here as well? Like, why can't we rep our specific neighborhood that we're from without having to default to the largest major city?
When you say coming from a place like Brampton, it's not small. It's like coming from like, I don't know, Timbuktu. Like, no, coming from Brampton, like that's pretty strong. Like, if you're from Brampton, you're pretty athletic. Like, oh, coming from Brampton. No, coming from Brampton, like oh, he's from Brampton? Okay, he's good.
It's kind of like that bragging rights. Like, people here, like, bragging rights is a big thing here when you win. Like, when you win and you get talked about, like, and people strive to get that feeling. And the whole time I'm thinking like, yo, I'm sick too, but they just don't know. Like, that's the culture here. That's the culture I grew up in. And I think that's the Brampton culture.
But if we can corner the market and just B-Town represent and take over, then I'm all for it.
We can put our talent up against any other part of the world. We believe in ourselves that much. Browntown, Bangladesh, people just look at it at like a very surface level and be like, yeah, a lot of brown people live there, a lot of South Asians live there. But if you go deeper into it, there's like literally every part of the world converges here. And for the large part coexists here and is trying to do something great here. To see someone like Jonathan and say, hey, he's from here, it can make dreams feel tangible.
Following the pathway of what it leads to is still wallowing the glass maze with a bleak view. Can't serve my captors. Matter of fact, word to kill a mic, I'm trying to murder my masters. My chapters.
Looking back at the World Cup, we're looking forward to the ones coming. Much of the talk on player development centers around Black and brown communities playing in the biggest of cities in the inner cities. But look no further than the boys from the Banlieues in France to understand that some of the best players in the world often come from refugee and immigrant backgrounds in the cities outside the cities. Well, Brampton is that place and is that underdog story. But if Oso and Kadisha have anything to say about it, it might not be the underdog for long.
Reverting backwards, I'm throwing dirt on my Caspers. Clash with mind, body, and spirit, but adapted and factored in the elements after. Treading my path instead of dwelling with my head in the past, and now developing a veteran stature.